I think we have a lot more things in common than we would like to portray or than we would like to believe. And if we are able to thread that common thread amongst us, eventually we'll boil down to we all want the same thing. Doesn't matter what generation you are, doesn't matter what community you're from. We all want financial security. We all want a place to call home. We all want companionship. So start from there. Start from there and not start from a place where we are different.
Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You, the podcast for the future of wealth management. Thanks for being here. I'm Marla Sofer. Money is a tool. It empowers people. Let's dive into how technology is personalizing advice, strengthening connections, and creating lasting impact. If you're an advisor looking to differentiate, a fintech leader shaping the next wave, or a client ready to take control of your financial future, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. The Know Me podcast, where we explore the art and science of discovery to build meaningful connections in financial planning. Theodora Lau is a fintech visionary and the founder of Unconventional Ventures. She has been at the forefront of advocating for inclusivity and innovation in financial services, helping to create systems that address the needs of the underserved communities and creating benefits for overlooked communities across the globe. She's also the co-author of Beyond Good, How Technology is Leading a Purpose-Driven Business Revolution, The Metaverse Economy, and she has a new book coming out called Banking on Artificial Intelligence. All of these books encourage thinking about tech differently. They focus on the measure and benefits of the outputs of technology. With her expertise in emerging tech, fintech, and consumer empowerment, Theo is here to discuss one of the most pressing topics of our time: data ownership, governance, and its impact on financial services and on our future. In this episode, we're going to dive into how personal data drives the technology revolution, AI, the implications of not owning your own financial data, and the important opportunities for businesses and individuals to build a more inclusive future. Theo, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So our first question is always, we'll try to take a positive spin. We try to start on the positive side. What excites you about the moment that we're in right now?
Oh, you did just put the caveat, putting a positive spin. Can I put a reality spin on it?
You can.
I think if you were to ask me this question a few months ago, I would say we are at a very interesting tipping point as it comes to technology, as it comes to what technology can and has enabled and what we can do with it. I mean, AI is not new. It's been around since 1940s. The application of AI also is not new, especially in financial services. We've used it for over 2 decades. A lot of them in the back end, a lot of them in process optimization, a lot of them automating really mundane things, or even things that we know, looking at a machine being able to read the digits on the check. That's machine learning. So using tech in various shapes and forms in financial services is not new. But what's been new in the last few years is being able to put that tech in the hands of everyday people, right? So now, we have kids in school learning how to use this to help them learn differently. We have adults that are working in different capacities, trying to use those tools to help them work more efficiently. And then we have educators grappling, what can we use this technology for? How children access education in a different way. So there are many, many ways that if you think about technology, and you think about what it can enable, the different parts of our lives, it is very exciting. That's the one part I always look at things as duality, right? So that's the positive part of what we have experienced so far.
Awesome. So it sounds like accessibility, kind of just the access component, and using it a lot more, like we can access it, but we can also use it. It's not just a matter of access. We're using it and embedding it.
Yes. And creating value out from it, right? Different kinds of values, things that we couldn't do before.
Yeah, makes sense. You've written so much about technology leading a purpose-driven revolution. So how does your vision align with the financial industry today?
That is a loaded question, Marla. I think one of the aspects that's always been intriguing to me is around the word inclusion, and use technology to enable people having not just access to more financial services, but things that can actually help them, right? So the easiest example is, being able to open a bank account. Okay. Being able to open a bank account is just the first step, and it doesn't really change anything, but the products and services that you enable them to have access to after you open the account, helping small business owners get access to credit that they couldn't do before, helping immigrants get access to loans that can enable them to go to school, right? Those things are things that you can enable using technology to enable them to get access to services and change a trajectory of where they are in their lives. I think that's the fascinating thing. But with that comes two things, right? So when we think about inclusion, I often tell people there's no financial inclusion unless there's digital inclusion. And it is really true. We often say, well, how easy it is. You can just, use the phone and open a bank account. You can use the phone to navigate, use an app to order stuff. But that's an assumption that you have access to the service, you have access to the equipment, and you also have access to the knowledge to know what you can do with it. That's the first part about tech and what you need in addition to. And then the other part of it is we focus a lot of time and energy in telling stories. Storytelling is a very powerful way of narrating why you're doing what you're doing. But as interesting as those stories are, the stories that you don't hear about, the people that you don't see, those are just as important. And I think that's the other part of the reminder as we navigate through, doesn't matter who we are and where we live and what we're doing. There's always someone else that might not have access to what you have, right? So I talk to fintech founders a lot. You're creating the service, assuming 90% of the population have access to this tool. What about the 10% of the people who don't have access to this technology? What about the people who don't have the ability to navigate through what you're providing? What are we doing for those?
I love this. I'm going to jump off of this a little bit into just kind of the core of what this podcast is really about and where I've kind of pivoted my entire career. And it's really focused in on what you just shared. There is a story and there's a lot of information we don't know, we don't see. And I wanted to kind of loop in a concept here that is always fraught in the financial industry. And that's the concept of what is the incentive? There is a tremendous amount of incentive to open the account. How much incentive is there to actually hear your story? How much incentive is there within the industry to say, I really want to get to know you because I want to solve your problem? And we don't have those incentive models embedded in our industry. We are very incentivized to push products, open accounts. That is what salespeople are rewarded for. They're not rewarded for, did you get to know that client and did you help them achieve what their goal was? And the answer might be, you know what? I didn't know their goal. They didn't even know their goal. So I opened their account and I moved on. So I'm curious how you approach that.
I was going to say, they might say, so what? I think that's the other part. And that resonates deeply because my background was in tech. I spent 20 plus years in tech before I started looking at what about you layer financial services on top of tech. I spent so much time looking at older adults demographic, longevity. How can we use technology to enable, sandwich generation, right? Like you and me, or older adults, just to plan better, right? We have the tool. The tool is in the hot pot. It's the incentive, precisely what you were saying. And I see so many people with amazing ideas that come through. We couldn't get the industry to respond because oftentimes they say, okay, yeah, I go through this, or, oh yeah, my mom needs this. Oh yeah, I spent a whole weekend helping my parents out with XYZ. So they see the need, but you can't bridge the need to why do they need to do something about it? Why do they need to spend the time and the energy to invest in it? I think that was always the hardest part, which brings me to, if we look at one of the fastest growing demographic, unfortunately, is older adults. We're all getting older. There's no way around it. And the needs are there, but also the opportunities, right? So if you look at how can we help people plan better, financial caregiving, how do we help multiple generations of people within the household plan better together? How do we help Gen X or even millennials plan for not just their own retirement and what they'll need as they get older, but also, the finances of their parents and grandparents so they don't get caught off guard. All of these things are common sense things that without the incentive model, it's kind of hard for the advisors to say other than, oh yeah, this is what you need to do. Okay, buy this product, which doesn't satisfy either one. To which I am a bearer of good news. After witnessing a lot of, I call it the graveyard of great ideas. There are actually changes that have started to come. So there's a recent company, actually it's in the Bay Area. They're about a year old, and they managed to use technology, which is amazing, to bridge healthcare and finance together to help people look at long-term care in a different way and to get that product in the hands of financial advisors and wealth advisors so that they can use that to create a different story in helping their clients see their needs, the long-term needs, to multiple things. Lily told me that they're able to get the end consumers to look at thinking about, oh, what I'm doing is not just about understanding the data about me, but also creating a way of protecting my family members, planning for the family, looking at future trajectory, looking at choices and how personal choices will impact what you need to plan for the future. So that's an amazing story in a nutshell, to look at how we can bring healthcare and finance together using the power of data and using the power of personalization to actually bring a positive outcome. That is a very long answer, right?
All good. No, it's okay. We wanted to kind of touch a little bit on that overlap also with healthcare, and kind of healthcare has gone through this as well. There is an industry that is structured to sell product, if you want to call it that, to treat. I would say in healthcare, there's also heavily regulated, but same as financial services, but they are still, the incentive model is for a lot of the ecosystem is to get you to buy things. And in financial services, it's no different. I would say the diagnostics in healthcare are a little bit stronger because the body speaks. Because even if you can't tell me what's wrong, I can take x-rays, I can do blood tests. It might take time, but eventually, hopefully we get to the root of what is actually causing your ailment. Finances doesn't have that. And so we really struggle to understand what is the root cause of what is creating pain in your financial life in order to help you with your financial planning. And so what you kind of suggested is a lot about, you got to really dig into the why. Why are they using this tool? Whether the tool is money is a tool, or whether the tool is tech. You kind of referenced, it's about financial planning. It's about future choices. It's about helping them achieve their goals and where they're going. So as you think about the role of financial services, how do you see it evolving from merely an industry that is collecting data to actively empowering its clients with ownership, with control over their information so that they achieve the outcomes that they personally deem valuable? It's not what other people tell me is valuable. It's what I personally believe to be valuable.
I think it's a work in progress, isn't it? I don't think it's an easy journey, because if you look at the traditional model of what we do, even consumer behavior, we have a lot of our eggs in one basket, which is the bank that we have, the primary relationship. That's where our paycheck goes. That's where our mortgage comes out. That's where all the expenses, everything is under this roof. And then as digital technologies become more prevalent, as we get more choices, we start having these little other relationships, right? You have a relationship with, let's say, Acorns account to help you save on the side. You have other PFM tools to help you plan various aspects of it.
For those who don't understand what PFM is your personal financial management. It's like your dashboard, kind of like what Personal Capital or Copilot, even Monarch Money. There's these tools that kind of tell you, here is your accounts, transactions, balances. And so you can run analytics and assess and analyze your behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the big tech that starts coming in, right? So you have your Apple credit card, you have your Apple Bank. So your finances and your data no longer rest with one primary party, but with multiple. Yeah. And one might say that, oftentimes when a paycheck comes into a bank, a chunk of that automatically goes to a different financial institution or a different firm where you manage your money. You have different virtual buckets of where things go. So as that data starts traveling to different entities, things start becoming more complicated. It becomes harder for us to actually get a good picture. Same with buy now, pay later services, right? They're in existence. Having one be an buy now, pay later might not be problematic, but when you have 4 or 5 of those, then it becomes really hard to track exactly who I need to pay when and how much. And so that's why I'm always fascinating at what you do, Because when we start thinking about how do we pull all of these together, who owns what part of the data? What can I have access to? And who can be there as my co-pilot to help me figure all of these out so I know what I need to do, right? It is very fundamental. All of these, you can say, this is not just about a transaction. It is me. It is my identity. It is who I am. And there is a path where I see where I want to be. So who can be there to help me bring all of this mess together to where I am right now and to get me to where I need to be? I think that's the question mark. And then that's a work in progress.
Yeah, I love that. And a stat that I often share, and I love this image that our common friend Ron Shevlin once created with kind of this picture of a couple and all of their financial interactions. The average American has 40 financial providers. And you think about how deeply each of those financial providers actually understands their client. They don't know that client at all. And so, yeah, I love that concept where tech can actually help me know me and then help me decide how am I getting value out of the partners that are supposed to be there to help me make better financial choices and to live the life that I'm aiming for. So I want to come back to the concept of, or the idea of inclusion a little bit. How do you see the financial sector can ensure that as they're innovating in data use and ownership benefits to underserved communities, particularly older adults, gig workers? You talk a lot about these communities. Where are the blind spots? How do you think that there can be opportunities for the financial sector, fintech, to open their eyes to say, guys, you're missing something really important here. And it's a business miss as well as a inclusion miss.
So we have this concept called the longevity economy. It's been around for quite a while. It's basically looking at the aging market as people who are older than 50, not looking at the frails, not looking at how people like to look at it as a burden on the society, but rather what we're contributing to. I'm over 50 here. So how are we contributing to the economy? We're still spending. We're still paying taxes. We are working. We are doing charitable work. We are doing all kinds of things that's uplifting the society as a whole. And so if we were to reframe and looking at demographics in a different way and looking at their contribution and looking at how we can use what we have to increase their contribution, I think that's one way to reframe the challenge and make it become an opportunity, right? So that is, it's a constant struggle. I often attribute it to lived experience or lack thereof. I still remember, and I've told this story quite a few times to different people way back when I first started looking at this space. I was trying to give an example of what we could potentially use AI for. This was probably 8-9 years ago now. If you think about how do we help people plan as our lives become more complex, as there are more households that are attached to us, I see a huge opportunity to use the power of AI and data analytics to help us project that trajectory. So I was trying to explain that to someone, and a banker actually just told me flat to my face. He's like, I'm not interested in old people. Which was fascinating. He was A, older than me, and B, we obviously all get older. A similar response I got with a fintech company. This time they came out with a product that was allowing people to split rent, and immediately, like a light bulb, I'm like, wait a minute, if we can use that, repurpose it for different family members that have to share, right, the cost of, I don't know, helping to renovate grandma's house or something like that, right? Or contribute, because we all have that. I don't want to use an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of everything. This is silly.
Especially longer term care. Yeah.
Good grief, right? We all been through that and going through that. And the founder I remember on the phone with him, and he was like, yeah, no, we don't do old people again. And it struck me as, hey, I'm pretty sure, at some point in time, we're all going to go through that. And I attribute it to, because in our industry, we love going after shiny new toys. We love going after the next sexy generation. You remember when we're all like, oh, we all need to be like millennials. And the next thing you know, we all need to be like more Gen Zs. The irony is that they're actually not that much different. The time that they're going through the things, right? Yeah, maybe they don't want to be buying a house in their 20s because they can't afford it. Doesn't mean that they don't want to. They're just buying it in the 30s. Or, I still remember everyone said, oh, no one's going to own a car anymore. We all a shared economy. And next thing you know, people are still buying cars. They're just buying it later in a different kind of car. I think we have a lot more things in common than we would like to portray or than we would like to believe. And if we are able to thread that common thread amongst us, eventually we'll boil down to we all want the same thing. Doesn't matter what generation you are, doesn't matter what community you're from. We all want financial security. We all want a place to call home. We all want companionship. So start from there. Start from there and not start from a place where we are different.
What if financial planning wasn't just about numbers, but about you, your values, your goals, your vision for the future? Nomi is transforming client discovery for wealth managers, going beyond assets and risk scores to uncover what truly matters. With behavioral insights and real-time data, Nomi helps advisors personalize advice, build deeper connections, and grow their businesses. Because the best financial decisions start with knowing you. Discover the future of client engagement at nomi.com. Yeah, I think I have another friend who kind of says, we all just want to know we're okay. Help me know I'm okay. I love this idea. And I actually believe, I really agree with what you're saying. As we talk about inclusion, you started by talking about how with longevity, you have an opportunity to look at how people define their own contribution priorities, and then enabling them, guiding the way that they might be deploying their own capital to give them that impact that they're looking for, to help them create that contribution economy that gives them purpose and meaning, through their maybe later years of life. I think that's true of all generations. Everyone's looking for impact. They all want to contribute in some meaningful way. It's part of the human condition. So that brings me to Beyond Good and AI and what you've been focused on more recently. So your books really go deep into advocating that tech can do more and should do more than generate profits. It should be looked at as more than a tool. It should benefit the users of tech. It should benefit society in a meaningful way. When you think about fintech and financial services today and their ability to build that future, what are some key tips to say, look, especially maybe financial companies who have not been rushing into tech and they're looking at, I would like to use tech and I would like to use it in a meaningful way for my clients. Where would you guide them?
Oh, I would say listen more. I think as an industry, we like to talk because we all have our own opinion and I have my own opinion, but I don't think we listen enough. If we were to actually just truly listen to what people really want and need, just like what you were saying earlier, and start from that place and listen to people outside of our circle. I know we say that all the time, right? Look beyond your little black book when it comes to looking for people for experiences and opinion. And I really, truly do believe in it. I'll share a story I learned a year and a half ago, actually. It's been a while, but he was one of the reasons why I felt so passionate about writing my last book, my most recent book. Actually, it's two people who inspired me. So one, Reggie Townsend, he's from SAS, and sneak peek, he actually wrote the foreword for my new book, and appreciate the team. He told me about the duty of care. He gave a keynote on why we need to care more. He talked about the role of data, the role of tech in this world. And his message resonates with me so much. I still remember the 3 words, duty of care. And he was one who was most instrumental in making me think about the human aspect of data and tech. And then another person, he's from Eastern European Bank. He told me a story last year about how a lot of the customers in his bank, they don't speak English. And they found they had a lot of difficulties in using a lot of the, AI tools and models that are out there, because most of them are based on Western languages and most of them are based on Western data. And they ended up creating a sort of collaboration amongst different banks in Eastern Europe to do something different, because they have to start to collect data, to understand the people in their demographics, to basically look at it from a language perspective as well. And those are things that I don't know if we think enough about. We like to say our world is surrounded by tech, and we are very privileged and blessed to be, in times that we have access to these tools. But when he told me he's a bank, and he said, I can't use any of the stuff out there. We have to build our own. And it struck me. And I started digging deeper in the rabbit hole. And there are 7,156 living languages in the world, over 7,100 living languages, not dead. People actually talking and speaking and using it. At the most, we have models that support about 50 languages, right? And it's gotten a little better. So there are intentional efforts in the EU, intentional efforts in within United Nations that's tried to reach out to more. But at the most, I think the largest set I saw is 100 languages, which brings the question to what happens to the other 7,000 languages that are being used and spoken today in the rest of the world. If we say AI is our future, if we say we live in the digital world and our future will be enabled by artificial intelligence, what kind of future are you creating and for whom and by whom? Because this is not a collective future that we can all benefit from. So those stories, as I talk to more people, that's the narrative that I think we need to pay more attention to, because we are working really hard to try to improve financial inclusion, right? And it has been enabled by tech and has improved quite a lot in the last decade. But I do fear if we start veering off in a different direction, we are going back to the old past. Internet was created with the vision of bringing people closer in from different corners of the world so we can exchange ideas and information. And we've seen what happened in the last 20 years. And so we're not careful. We're recreating that past that we had.
I love how you started by saying that the industry and financial services companies particularly should listen. And then you shared that story and you recognize if you don't understand the language, then you're not listening. Communication demands that you have an opportunity to listen and also understand what was said. And so I think that that's just kind of a really beautiful, very simple tip. You can't listen if you don't have a mechanism to communicate. If it requires two parties that have an opportunity to listen, especially if you're in a services business. So second to last question is always, you were an early supporter of Nomi's, and I appreciate that. I reached out to you early. We've kind of been on the same track, met each other at multiple Money 2020s and then FinTech meetups, and have had the opportunity to be at different events together. And so I have just really enjoyed being a follower and listener to a lot of what you are teaching the market. I'm curious, what did you see in Nomi and our vision to empower people to achieve their goals by being able to communicate those goals so much more effectively, especially with the industry that should be measuring itself against? Did you deliver into that benefit that they were looking for?
I think, was it last 2 years ago? I can't remember when you told me the concept of financial identity. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because normally when we think about identity, we think about, I don't know, a passport, an ID card, things that are us, right? A physical thing. And I didn't typically think about all the other stuff, right? About data, about our values, what we hold true, our priorities. So I think that was a very refreshing way of thinking about data, a refreshing way of thinking about what we should own and what we should have control over and how we can use that to define our future. And that was the one thing that struck out the most, is understanding how we can use technology to bridge that very ones and zeros side of us to the very human side of us and bringing them together. And that is the power that you enable. So I don't know, kudos to you.
I love that. Yes. And a lot of our industry likes to stay in the zeros and the ones. It's very much, we're so well conditioned to stay in those numbers, but our clients aren't numbers. They're humans.
No, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
You and I are talking through a screen, but you're not a robot, right? And I am not a robot. So I don't think I am. so every aspect of our lives are human. It has human choices. It has human emotions. It has our values. It has all of these things that make us human. So why can't we think about finance that way?
I agree. What is one instance or a conversation that you had in your life that changed your own personal relationship with money?
Oh God, I don't know. I'll tell you a funny story. Actually, two funny stories. I'll be quick. So I grew up in Hong Kong. So every Chinese New Year we celebrate, right? We go visit friends, we go visit families, and we get these red packets when we still do. And back when I was growing up, I'm showing my age, you go visit your elders or you see your mom and dad's friends and you get these red packets. I love getting coins. I dislike paper bills because coins, if I put it in the piggy bank, it makes a sound, right? So think about a 2-3-year-old, like, oh, this is cute. Like, dum, 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 dum. You keep putting things in there. So I would actively refuse paper bills, even though from a money perspective, right? Think about decision making. That was really bad. I'm like, no, I don't want a $10 bill. I want a $1 coin. That was not smart. And I was
Yeah, it's like from a sensory perspective, it's so much more delightful.
exactly. And that goes to, what we were saying, right? Ones and zeros, monetary value versus human emotions. So that was my very, very early lesson, learning about how those two actually doesn't really align all the time. But my real money experience was when I was in college, and gosh, I hope my kids won't go through this. First day in college, right? I went to a school in upstate New York. Walked in there. You have this long table that is full of your, college stuff, sweatshirts and the mugs and all of these like college spirit. Hey, welcome freshman day one. Sign up for credit card.
Yes, I remember.
Right.
Yes.
I always do that. That was the first thing you see when you walk into the student union. I'm like, oh, I'm proud of my school. Sign up for the credit card. Next thing you know, right? Signing up was the easy part. Knowing how to navigate and understanding how interest and late payment fees work, that's the tough part. And they didn't give you that lesson, right? It's all in the fine print and the 5-page stuff that comes after in very small fonts that you can't read because they assume you know, and I absolutely did not know. And that was when I realized, wow, ouch. That extra $100 that I didn't pay because I figured, well, I just paid the minimum, right? It looks so good. I'll pay the 100 next month. Wait, it's not 100 anymore. Oh my God, it becomes 140. How did that happen?
Wow. Yeah.
That was my lesson.
It's a hard lesson. And it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. The incentive is to get you to sign up, get into this,
system.
Get into this addictive hedonic treadmill that is going to keep you operating in the way that's going to keep us profiting. Thank you for sharing the story. And it's a really vulnerable story. I appreciate that you shared it. This has been a very eye-opening conversation. I'm so grateful for you for sharing your insights on data ownership, financial empowerment, inclusion, the role of tech, the benefit that we should seek out in tech, and really creating a better future by aligning tech with its outcomes. So the financial industry now is at a crossroads. We can continue down this path of using data for efficiency and profit, or we can reimagine its potential as a tool for autonomy, equity, purpose-driven impact. You reminded us today that owning our financial profiles isn't just about control, it's about agency, contribution. I love that word. It's about helping somebody contribute and shape a system that serves them. And then we all win. If today's conversation sparked something for you, ask yourself, how much of your financial data do you own, and how are you contributing to this world using tech as a tool to help you achieve that? The answer might surprise you. The future of financial services depends on shifting the balance, and every individual, fintech, and financial institution has a role to play. Theo, tell us where our listeners can connect with you, buy your book and your upcoming book, and explore more about your work on purpose-driven innovation.
So before I forget, thank you so much for having me. This
You're
is a
so
wonderful
welcome.
conversation. Appreciate it. I'm on LinkedIn most of the time. So just look me up, Theodora Lau. And my latest book will be available on Amazon. Just look for Banking on Artificial Intelligence. That should be the first book that come out.
Phenomenal. And for our listeners, what is one way you'd like financial services to better serve you? Drop it in the comments or DM me. Thanks, Theo.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more transformative conversations to you. Until next time, keep discovering, keep growing, and remember, you're in control of your own financial story. Follow us for more conversations on financial confidence, self-discovery, and the future of money.